My parents stole my identity. What's the most up thing your parents have done to you, Reddit? While growing up, my parents would argue every so often. And it would escalate to screaming matches. It pretty much sucked. This went on until I was 4 or so. The last time it happened, my father struck my mother. And she decided it was time for us to leave. We lived out in the country where neighbors weren't around for miles. Closest neighbor we had was about 7 miles away. My mother grabbed my baby brother and headed out the door. I was already outside, avoiding them and their screaming. She told me to follow her. So I did. As we were leaving the property, my father yells out for my mother to come back, which she refuses to do so. Come back or I'll shoot. Alt account 9229. She turned and refused again. And I turned around in disbelief. My father threatened to shoot me if she didn't come back. I just stood there not knowing what to do. Call my mother's name. Come back now. I stood there as my mother walked back to grab my hand. As she reached for it, my father pulled the trigger. The next thing I remember was waking up in the hospital. 2.5 weeks later, my father had shot me in the forehead with a .22 rifle. I haven't seen him since. And I heard he died 7 years ago. That's the most up thing either of my parents have done to me. My dad came out when I was 15. My mother, a religious zealot, pretty much manipulated my view of him, declaring that he was destroying not only their marriage but also our family, and dragged me to Love One Out conferences which were, for all intents and purposes, brainwashing, bigoted, gay bashing parties. She forced me into Christian counseling and cried to me daily about how horrible he was. I found myself distancing myself from my father, whom I had considered my best friend for most of my life. Eventually, about 3 months later, I realized that she was one of the most hateful and hurtful human beings on earth and came back to my dad asking for forgiveness. He's sitting next to me while we are vacationing in Hawaii right now, and my mother and I have a weird, distant relationship now. Thank you for all the support. I should mention, my father texted me every single day of my not talking to him stage. He just said I love you. And I'm here. His feelings never changed for me. He knew my mother was being manipulative and horrible. He just waited with open arms. Here is a picture of us in Hawaii to put faces to fan of Paul and fan of Paul's dad. I love him. http://imgur. Comenergy. My stepmom branded my tongue with a heated up spoon when she caught me lying. Because a lot have asked. Yes, I can still taste. The incident happened about 12 years ago. My stepdad, or one of my mom's pimps, depending on how you look at it, stole my high school girlfriend. Got her addicted to and turned her into a hooker. He even told me he was gonna do it as soon as he met her. I married a woman for her papers. Her parents were illegal immigrants. She was born in Mexico 3 months before they made their exodus. When she was 25 years old, she found out that the social security number that her mom was using was actually hers. She was born in Ontario, CA, not Mexico. As a result of her being raised thinking she was an illegal, she dropped out of high school believing she wouldn't be able to graduate without a social security number. California, not Canada. My mother beat me daily, belittled me, told me I should have been an abortion quite often, then left me with her boyfriend when I was 6 while she went out to party every night fully aware that he was going to me and never did a damn thing about it. I was starved by her, beaten, screamed at daily, and then by another boyfriend she had when I was older. Thanks, Mom. My parents guilted me into loaning them $8,000, over half my paychecks for a year, when I was 17. Is now 4 years later and I'm pretty sure they have no intention of paying me back. I think my dad forgot it ever happened. I was stolen by my grandmother as a child. They moved cross country several times, going from church to church avoiding authorities until they gave up. Eventually they found a church that would help them hide. They also didn't allow me to brush my teeth cause fluoride was the devil. or some bat crazy thing like that. Kept me homeschooled where all classes were basically read the Bible again. Wasn't allowed outside until the age of about 15ish. Unless it was to go to church, of course. Had to move back in with them at 19. Had a job and was saving up to move out. Had about 5,000 stored away in cash. Couldn't have a bank account cause I was too paranoid. They tore apart my room looking for either money or drugs while I was at work. Then played dumb. And the list could go on with these people. This happened to a guy I know. He was a regular guy. Funny. Outgoing. A little socially awkward and unsure of himself, but a good guy nonetheless. It's his senior year of high school. He comes home, walks inside, and everything is gone. His parents up and moved while he was at school. House looked like a fire sale happened. He wound up crashing at my ex-girlfriend's parents' house for the remainder of his senior year. They had always liked them. He called her mom mommy. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. My mom and dad separated when I was 8. When I turned 15, he was diagnosed with colon cancer and died a year later. On his deathbed, she did everything she could to talk him into marrying her again while he was extremely medicated. She had him brought out home for hospice so he could be with his children. He never agreed to marry her regardless of her constant attempts. He did make the mistake of giving her power of attorney. He passed away and she took all of his estate for herself and conned my sisters and I into signing away parts of our inheritance while we were still young and dumb. All 3 of us. 14 years later. Still have financial trouble when we could have had our lives and educations taken care of by our hard-working father. We no longer acknowledge her as anything but our birth giver now that we are all grown and know what she did to our family. His death day is on the 21st of this month. R.I.P. Dad.